it is about international collaboration. We are collaborating, we are working, and then it is work in progress.
But the Abba Kyari matter is not about collaboration. It's about the investigation that was instituted on Nigerians within the police, and also will link to your office.
But there are components of it. It is of international dimension. One thing I can tell you about
what's the outcome of the investigation from Nigerian side?
Well, there are a lot of issues that are ongoing, inclusive of the possibility of consideration for extradition and associated things. That is where the collaboration element of it comes into play, in respect of all the two cases.
So there's a possibility of extradition?
There could be a need, or perhaps the possibility of making such requests, and they are looking into it.
Was there a request for extradition?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the parties are discussing, the parties are collaborating, and then there are exchange of correspondence from the perspectives of investigation, from the perspectives of extradition and associated things.
Is the police officer found guilty from the investigation?
You can't find someone guilty. You can't find someone guilty, but perhaps the reasonable grounds for suspicion can be established, will translate to prosecution that will eventually translate.
Because the panel has a quasi-judicial role and function. So they could also, of course, find some kind of culpability in their investigation.
Prima facie, that is what we are talking of, reasonable grounds for suspicion. Reasonable grounds for suspicion has been established, and that will eventually translate to the possibility of prosecution and eventual conviction, if indeed, at the end of the day, the one is adjudged guilty by a court of law.
So,
Mr. Austin Ewa joins us to weigh in on the matter. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, this matter concerning Mr. Abba Kyari and DLA's arrest of him, well, several quarters think this puts the police in bad light. They didn't handle this case well. What do you think, sir?
Thank you for having me, Chamberlain. I think this case, this particular latest case, comes as a shock and an embarrassment, not only to the country, but to the police itself, considering that this officer already had a problem involving the FBI, and then somehow he was allowed to operate within the fringes of the police while being on suspension. So it's a shock and it's a shame, not only to the country, as well as an embarrassment to the Nigerian police force. It tells a lot about the nature of internal accountability within the police, accountability and supervision of police officers, even whilst on suspension.
Yeah, but Mr. Ewa, if it comes to them as a shock, doesn't that mean that there's something fundamentally wrong? Because remember some time ago, there was that report by the Auditor General of the Federation about the police armory, certain weapons not being accounted for, that was sent to the House of Reps, who haven't heard any response from the police as of yet on that matter. That was under operational matter. This same matter is an operational matter. So they will know him. They know his character. They know his team. They've had several comments about him. So how could this be a shock to them?
No, I'm not saying that it's a shock to the police. I'm saying that it's a shock to Nigerians and an embarrassment to the Nigerian police force that somebody who is on suspension is possibly allowed to operate within the fringes of his suspension, within the fringes of the police, and even still has contacts with his previous office. It's a shame, as far as I'm concerned, and and that's what I said. It tells a lot about the nature of accountability and supervision within the force. So something is wrong along that line that needs to be fixed.
If he has contacts within the force, perhaps within his former team, the IRT, what should happen to those people who are in contact with him? Because chances are that he might have been impeding the performance of the current acting person in IRT.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. He may have been impeding the performance of the current officer. But you need to also know that this is a character that over the years has amassed tremendous experience in the field, in police operations, and sometimes, maybe based on that, he may be contacted once or twice to give his experience and advice on certain operation. But to allow him to take control of an operation of the nature that we are just hearing about speaks a lot about the structures that we have in the police that are extremely weak in some areas, and structures that are difficult for it to conform to rules and regulations.
Let's talk about the investigative capabilities of the Nigeria police, because that came up in our conversation with Mr. Ebolo Adeburua, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. And he's of the opinion that the police is not capable of conducting proper investigation, at least in this particular case. Because, I mean, if you've been following this case, recall that, you know, the extradition conversation came up very early in 2021. The IGP ordered a probe in July, August, he was suspended. But that probe dragged up until now. And I mean, this was meant to be an investigation, a quick one, because it was going to prove a lot. I mean, do well for the image of the police and, you know, tell a major story, not just for Nigeria, but to the world. But that had dragged up until now when the NDLA now brought up this case. So does that raise questions for you as well about the investigative capabilities of the police?
I believe that the police is capable in many respects, and I know that even currently, the police is working towards reforming its investigative capacity. I know that because I'm involved, and even today we're having a meeting with the for CID to see how that process will be strengthened with the British Council. So I know that there has been some challenges here and there in terms of capacity, in terms of professionalism, in terms of skills, modern skills and competencies in investigative processes. But I know that something is being done about that, and it's also within the context of police reform that is going on internally. On the other hand, you mentioned about the previous investigation. I'm sure that is the fraud case, the hush puppy case. You need to understand that the police will find it difficult to carry out effective investigation on the basis of evidence that is provided on Twitter or pages of newspapers. I am not very sure that the panel that was set up to investigate the hush puppy case received formally documents from the FBI to use as in their investigation. I am not even sure whether a member of the FBI came into the country to make presentations to the panel that was set up by the Inspector General of Police. So it will be very difficult for police to rely on evidence that is available in the on the pages of the internet. Evidential documents must be presented properly to any investigation panel. But yes, I agree with you. There are weaknesses here and there when it comes to police investigative capacity.
Well, I mean, the police is our lead investigative agency. The police is big. It's an elephant, I mean, telling from its logo. And I say that again, the capacity of the police, I imagine, is huge in Nigeria, not just in terms of manpower, but resources available to it. And I want to imagine, except that didn't happen, that the Nigeria police must have made some requests to the FBI to ask for some of these evidence. But even at that, you said that there are witnesses and all that. So why should it take July, August, September, October, November, December, and now in January, we still don't have anything about that particular investigation?
Same question, H1, all of us outside the force keep asking, same question. Why is it taking, this is a simple case. I mean, cases of fraud are some of the most simplest cases you can investigate because it has to do with tracing money, tracing evidence. So it surprises me myself that for more than 5 months, we are still talking about this case. But
well, we're going to sort that out.
Evidence that has not been made available. evidence that has not been made available before the panel and investigated it. And I'm sure that is the basis on which the Police Service Commission threw away the investigation report as weak.
There are those, Mr. Iwa, who are saying that the entire system needs to be sniffed to find out if there are similar, people. There are people who could be perpetrating such acts as has been discovered in the case of Mr. Abba Kyari so far. In your opinion, do you see any value in that, especially in the light of the fact that the police and the NDLEA are talking back at each other on this matter?
Yes, I mean, of course, I won't be surprised if there are other Abba Kyaris in the system. I won't be surprised. The police is not a perfect organization, and so the staff there, the people working there, will not be perfect. There may be others there that are committing all kinds of crimes at different levels. And I think that we can fish out this kind of people when you have a proper police reform on ground that we set in, we look at the system, the structures, and the processes, and even guidance of doing things within the police. And through that, I think you'll be able to find out those people who are not supposed to be where they are. And then something can be done about them. Either they are thrown out of the system or they are reformed themselves.
You've operated within the system for many years before you retired and got to become AIG. So I'm going to ask you the same question I've asked a number of other people, and you probably will be able to speak to that better. What is it in the system that makes police officers vulnerable?
First of all, you need to understand that police is a neglected organization, neglected by government itself. The police is supposed to be responsible to the police council that has been created by the Constitution of Nigeria, but that council doesn't operate. The council is supposed to be responsible for the administration of the Nigerian police, the supervision and the management of the police, but it never works. It never works. I mean, the police council is like a board of directors that charts the future of any organization. But unfortunately, the police is left out to operate on its own. And secondly, on the basis of funding, there is nothing in the police, in the core policing function that is funded by government. Investigation is not funded. Core aspects of police work are not funded at all. Investigations are not funded, patrols are not funded, other aspects of crime prevention are not funded by government. So we find a police organization that is left to operate on its own whims, that officers now scout around, find any means possible to deliver. And you find an organization that is under pressure, internal pressure to perform, external pressure to perform. And then with the neglect in terms of training, equipment and other things, you discover that everybody is operating according to what they think is the correct thing to do.
Well, Mr. Wabbs, I mean, the thing is, I mean, if the Police Service Commission is not working, then something should be done about them. Either we disband, reorganize, change the laws, and get something that works. That's aside. But then concerning, sorry, Police Council.
Police Council.
Yes, please. That's what I meant to say. So concerning Mr. Kyari's case, it's good to actually see that cooperation between the NDLEA and the police. So should the police have gone the whole hog to ensure that not just suspend him, but get him out of the system such that he can now face the law as deemed fit, whatever it is?
Let me first of all clarify one thing. The Nigerian police has responsibility, constitutional and other legal responsibility, to investigate any crime in this country. Any crime, whether it's terrorism, whether it's terrorism, whether it's the one we have, whether it's drug, they have that responsibility to carry out to investigate. So the fact that the police is handing over this case to NDLEA speaks that the police wants to cooperate with NDLEA. Nothing stops the police from investigating this case entirely and even asking NDLEA to submit their officials. But I think that the IGP was magnanimous enough to do a preliminary investigation, which was also made public, and then sent to NDLEA to continue with the investigation. And secondly, for NDLEA to properly prosecute Kyari must be dismissed first from the Nigerian police. That's the standard procedure. That's the standard protocol, that you cannot prosecute a serving officer. He or she has to be dismissed from the service. So I'm sure that by the time NDLEA finishes their investigation, they will send the report to the police. The police will use that investigation and conduct an internal disciplinary process that will lead to his exit before prosecution can take place.
Wow. All right. So that suggests that it's not going to happen as fast. The prosecution may not happen as fast as some people think it will.
Well, that will depend on the evidence before NDLEA. If they can wrap everything up within a short period of time, it won't be a problem.
All right, Mr. Osinewa, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
You're welcome.
Mr. Ewa is former AIG of police. So that is it with this segment. Just give us a moment. We'll turn our attention to another matter entirely. Don't go away.